When we were children, my sister Sarah was my shield against the world. She walked half a step ahead of me on dusty school roads, turning back every few seconds to make sure I was still there. If anyone teased me for being quiet, for choosing books over games, she would glare at them until they backed away. Back then, I believed siblings were unbreakable things. Our home was small, but it was filled with dreams. My parents saw a bright future in Sarah. She spoke confidently, laughed loudly, and never doubted herself. Teachers praised her leadership. Neighbors predicted her success. I was the opposite. I observed, listened, and thought deeply, but rarely spoke. People mistook my silence for weakness. As we grew older, life began choosing favorites. Sarah climbed every ladder placed in front of her. Scholarships, promotions, awards, her achievements became family celebrations. Relatives compared their children to her, using her name as a standard of success. I watched from the background, proud but slowly disappearing. I tried building something of my own. I poured years into ideas no one believed in. Late nights, borrowed money, silent sacrifices. When my startup failed, the world labeled me instantly unsuccessful, unreliable, finished. No one asked how hard I had tried. Failure, I learned, erases effort. Sarah changed after that. Our conversations grew shorter. Her advice sounded like judgment. Her encouragement turned into polite distance. Success had taught her confidence, but it had also taught her comparison. I wasn't her little brother anymore. I was a reminder of what she never wanted to be. Then came the wedding invitation. Thick, elegant, heavy with gold letters. Her name shined brighter than the venue printed beneath it. At the bottom, in a rushed handwritten line, she added, "Please be on time." No warmth, no affection. Just instruction. I stared at that card for a long time. Part of me wanted to decline, to protect what little pride I had left. But blood pulls harder than pride. She was still my sister. Even if she had already decided I was a failure. The wedding hall looked like something borrowed from another world, a world where money softened every edge of reality. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen stars above marble floors. Roses lined the aisles, imported, perfect, expensive. Every detail whispered success, and every guest looked like they belonged there. I didn't. I took a seat at the far end, close to the exit, where no one would need to notice me. Conversations floated around me, business deals, investments, promotions. People spoke in numbers and titles, languages I once understood but no longer tried to speak aloud. Then Sarah arrived. She walked in like someone who had already won at life. Confidence wrapped around her like silk. Cameras followed every step she took. Applause filled the room, and for a brief moment I felt proud. She was my sister after all. I remembered the girl who once held my hand. The memory didn't last. When the speeches began, the lights dimmed, and Sarah stepped onto the stage. She laughed easily, thanking her colleagues, her mentors, her support system. Every word was polished, practiced, powerful. Then she changed her tone. Success, she said, smiling, is about courage, about taking risks and standing back up when you fall. A pause. But not everyone can do that. Her eyes found me. Some people, she continued lightly, confuse dreams with effort. They chase ideas without direction and call it ambition. Soft laughter rippled through the room. I felt heat rise to my face, but I didn't move. My hands stayed folded in my lap. Years of silence had trained me well, and family, she added, lifting her glass, teaches us patience, even when someone never quite figures life out. This time the laughter was louder. My chest tightened not from anger, but from something worse, betrayal. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't careless. This was deliberate. I wondered when I had stopped being her brother and become a warning story. People glanced back at me, curious, amused, relieved they weren't the one being pitied. I met none of their eyes. Dignity, I told myself, doesn't beg for understanding. Sarah raised her glass higher, victorious, certain the story ended with her standing tall and me sitting small. She had no idea the truth was already seated in the room, and it was waiting. The celebration resumed as if nothing had happened. Music swelled, glasses clinked, laughter returned, but something invisible had changed for me. The words Sarah spoke still echoed in my chest, heavy and sharp, yet strangely, I felt calm. Almost detached, like a storm had already passed inside me. Then her phone rang. At first, she ignored it, waving to guests posing for photographs. The screen lit up again, and again. Her smile tightened. She stepped aside, answering in a whisper meant to sound casual. "Yes, I'm at the wedding. Is something wrong?" Her posture stiffened. Around her, a few executives exchanged looks. I noticed her CFO moving closer, his expression drained of color. The music felt suddenly too loud, too unnecessary. "I don't understand," Sarah said quietly. "Now, can it wait?" The voice on the other end didn't wait. She covered the phone, turning to her team. "They're insisting. The investor." The word carried weight. Conversations nearby slowed. Everyone knew about the mystery investor, the unseen force behind the company's biggest expansion. No meetings, no photographs, only precise emails and perfectly timed funding. "They want to speak to someone here," the CFO murmured. "Personally." Sarah frowned. "Me." The CFO hesitated, then shook his head. "No, your brother." Silence crashed into the space between us. Heads turned. Confusion spread like ripples in still water. Sarah looked at me, as if someone had spoken the wrong name. Her confident expression cracked, just slightly. "That's not possible," she said, forcing a laugh. He isn't." I stood. The movement felt louder than the music. Every step toward her felt like crossing years of misunderstanding, judgment, and quiet endurance. She handed me the phone with shaking fingers. The voice on the line was calm, familiar. "I apologize for the timing," it said, "but this conversation couldn't wait." I spoke softly. "I understand." The voice continued, now on speaker. "Our investment was approved because of a system your brother designed, a framework we evaluated independently before funding your company." Murmurs erupted around us. We were told he had failed. The voice added evenly, "Failure doesn't usually produce work like this." Sarah's breath caught. Her world, so carefully built on assumptions, began collapsing in real time. I handed the phone back without meeting her eyes. I didn't need to say anything. The truth had already spoken. The room didn't erupt into chaos. It fell into something far heavier, understanding. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Smiles faded. The chandeliers still glittered, but no one seemed impressed by them anymore. Sarah stood frozen, holding the phone like it had burned her. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what to say. The confidence she wore so easily minutes ago slipped away, leaving behind someone painfully human. I could have spoken then. I could have explained every sleepless night, every rejection, every risk I took alone. I could have returned her humiliation with interest, but I didn't, because revenge doesn't always raise its voice. Sometimes it simply stands still and lets truth do the work. The investor confirmed the partnership would continue. The system I had built would remain the backbone of the company's future. Apologies followed from people who had laughed earlier. Their words felt empty, but I accepted them with a nod, not for them, for myself. Later, when the crowd thinned and the music softened, Sarah found me standing near the balcony. The city lights below flickered like fragile promises. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't know. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the sister I once loved, buried beneath years of comparison and pride. "You didn't ask," I said gently. "You decided." Tears filled her eyes. "I was afraid of failure," she admitted. "And you reminded me of it." I smiled softly. "Failure didn't break me. It built me." She nodded, unable to meet my gaze. I didn't demand apologies. I didn't rewrite the past. I simply chose to walk forward. That night, I left the wedding early. Not in shame, but in peace. The world still didn't know my name, but it would, and more importantly, I finally did.